Hello, everyone. I've just stumbled on a great idea, I think, and I would like to discuss it as the nature of this channel. And it actually just, weirdly enough, it just dawned on me, and it didn't even seem like it was, like nothing provoked it, nothing brought it on, but it just made me think that it's a easier way to get the issues of a country solved. So I was thinking of a way that I could reinvent government, and that's um, basically what I did in a sense. So with my new idea for government, it really hinges on modern day AI, which is slowly getting better, but it also makes it so there's its own kind of security systems and everything. Um, so with the voting system, it will be dependent on AI, and I'll get more into that in a moment. But now with the actual like idea, I didn't write anything down. I have no notes at all. So like it's literally off the top of my head. It's kind of like a scattered brand new idea. So try not to judge too hardly, but definitely judge it so we can figure out if it works or how this might go. But it's like the modern government, just slightly changed. So the mayors would still have to run the city, right? And they would run each of their own cities. Obviously, there's so many different cities, so many different mayors. That means we have. Sorry, that a bottle just popped for no reason. But yeah, so we have to have so many mayors across the country in order to run each area. So the people would have to, elect a mayor, still the same. And by electing a mayor, we have to make it so that they're more accountable to the people so that they can actually reach out to people. So the mayor is going to be slightly different. It's going to be the operations of the city, but it's also to make sure that the people are heard with city councils and stuff like that. The same kind of things that are going on. I know I haven't really changed anything yet. But yeah, with the mayors being elected, obviously there's so many across Canada, for example, this great country I'm in. Since there's so many different mayors that exist, we would make it so after that, this is where it changes, the mayors would have to be elected, or would have to elect a, let's say, premier or like a leader of the province, right? So all of the mayors would have to unifiably get behind one person, or like they'd vote it down from a group of people, right? But it'd be their own kind of parliamentary hearing where they elect the leader of the province. So each person gets represented through each mayor, and each mayor represents the people to their final elected person, right? It makes it so there's more accountability on all stages down. But yeah, when they elect this person, the leader of the province, then they would be similar to like the House of Commons and everything, but they would have to go and meet up, and they're more of the logistics and like trigger man, I guess, where they execute plans and they get those things done. So bear with me again because there's not much changes, but there is changes. So with those heads of provinces, they are the ones that have to figure out the issues and write the bills and stuff, very similar to how we have now. I would say just get rid of like a prime minister or president in general. There's no reason to have one person, especially in Canada. Like they don't really have a whole lot of power. They are the leader of the country, and there's definitely powers they have outside of regular government, but it's not that much of a change. So that position almost seems like a moot point, especially with my new plan. So after you have like your premiers or your governors or whatever title you want to call these people, they have to listen to the mayors, and they create the bills off of that. So if, for example, in Alberta, they're saying, hey, we need this, this, and this, with the mayors being to the locals, then they could do local votes. And once enough people have like mentioned it or went to a town hall meeting or agreed with a point at a local level, it makes it so it goes up to the mayors. And if the mayors need help from the provincial level, then they can get their help and it can be voted down. So that's like province by province, just like normal. But then when it gets to the bigger issues, things that impact Canadians, whether it's economy, taxes, foreign relations, or anything like that, like the big things that could be detrimental to the civilian population, we have it so that there's still a vote system, But once there's a bill put into place from all of these people, we can have like multiple options, or we can add or take away things when it's at that stage. And obviously, there's going to be some conflicts. Obviously, we can't get everyone to agree on every topic. So instead of having it so the news can relay to you, or anyone can just like give you false information, we create this closed loop system that only has like access to voters, right? We're already tracked through our phones and everything. Our phone numbers are mostly attached to our SIN numbers. Our SIN numbers are our ID, right? So we're already basically in the system for being tracked. So if we can make it so our phone links to our SIN number that shows we're voters and of voter age, then we could have like weekly votes for small issues. We could have monthly votes for medium issues, and we could have yearly votes for like big issues, right? So like we can top it up, and obviously we vote accordingly. If there's a big issue that comes up in June, and we already know that consensus wise, unanimously, the population will vote one way, we can set it up so it's voted on the weekly meetings. And instead of having it so there can be biases, what we'll have is for the provincial level, there's obviously the two sides of most opinions, at least. That we'll have it so instead of them being able to sway the media, they can write a list of pros, right? So the people who are for it, they'll write a list of pros, and the people against it will write a list of cons. As long as everyone is passionate about that, about their side, and they're passionate about the debate, they'll be able to have all of those as a clear list. So we don't need to fish through information. We just have the pros and cons, and then we have the outline of the bill or the outline of the bills, so that we can weigh them out accordingly. And in these votes with our phones, since everything is tracked, and it's like obviously be like an app or something, be a closed loop system, we'll have it so the vote goes, and as the vote goes, it'll go through one AI system that is programmed to not be doctored at all. It'll keep track of the votes, and it'll send them through to a second AI system to also do the exact same thing, like no difference at all. And then there's a third place where user interface can be seen. So as a human, we can go in there and be like, oh, look, there's a trigger between this AI or this AI, or like there's outside influence, whether it's from a different country or whatever, right? So like you can have all of these different interference loops. And if the numbers change at the end after the two AIs, obviously that's human interface, and that would make it so that whoever that person is cheated. But if it happens in between the AIs, then we could typically think that the vote was like hacked, or there's some kind of malfunction or anything like that. So we could just do a revote, I guess. And if it happens before the first AI, like that is subject to your phone itself. So all of our phones would basically have to be hacked in order to take over the vote. So that seems very unlikely. There's a whole bunch of security protocols, and like companies are number one against that. So in this closed loop system, we can get rid of political biases. We can get rid of the news, essentially, because it'll outline everything you need. It'll bring the moral responsibility to people, which all of us honestly want. If you think about all of time, like when a war happens, right, like World War II, when the men were going off to war and everything, the men that were too young often stepped up to help around the house, or to take care of siblings, or whatever. The women went off to work, and they did amazing jobs taking over where the men left gaps, right? Even young ladies that were too young to do any of those things, like they typically stepped up in a almost a mother role, even though they were like 10 or 11 or 12, right? So they had moral responsibility, and they rose to the occasion. We have many accounts through all of time where famine has happened, right? And when famine happens, typically people come together. It's, hey, neighbor, hey, village, we have this much food, you have that much food, let's stockpile, we'll ration and try and get both of our families to get through, right? Or all of our families to get through. Like that has happened throughout time. And they all knew they had a moral responsibility so that the people around them would survive. So if we get rid of the political biases and we empower people to have moral responsibility, I see more people stepping up to the plate than ever before. And like I feel like the biggest change that this would outlie is It would make it so things actually get accomplished. I'm finding in governments like the one we have now, the party system is so divided that it makes it so, one side wants this, one side wants that, and then obviously there's a like Canada, there's a third party in there that usually is just a fraction that, and like we have smaller parties, but they never make it to a real riding. But that makes it so there's a lot of yay and nay. It can make it so there's filibusters, or it can make it so there's a delay of process. It can even make it so there's full government shutdowns. All of those things make it so my problems, your problems, and all of our friends and families' problems only get worse because it takes more time to get the things solved. If we could find a way to streamline that process so these people are listening to their representatives below, so like the provincial leaders are listening to the mayors below, they're hearing the locals concerns, and once there's enough of a public outcry, those mayors bring it up to the provincial level, the provincial level brings it together, and they formulate a bill or they formulate plans so that they can do it. And again, they only outline the pros and cons, they only outline the things that are significant to the bill, not my opinion, not their opinion, no hearsay or anything like that. We just want this bill is to accomplish this. This is how it's going to be done. And then here's the pros and cons. And if it's a multiple different solutions can be offered, with all the provinces, obviously you can have many different provincial leaders. So if each one of them has a plan that they can solve this, we'd be able to make it so each one of them brings the plan, and then we'll have to go through every one of their plans and vote as a people. But again, I think the moral responsibility, the lack of the bias, would bring people together. And when we make a decision as a people, we have to stand in it, right? So like we can't blame the liberal government or the conservative government. We can't blame anyone except for ourselves. If we as a collective are like, we want to do this and we do it and it was terrible, we can't say that they did it. We can't say that they ruined our lives. It makes it so we as the people have the decisions, right? And even in this house, right? Because I know the prime minister has like public relations and economic ties, and it has to be a meeting place and everything. So even out of the 12, like they can elect a chairman, the main one to go and speak. So it doesn't even have to be like a prime minister with any outstanding party rules. It just is the main one that goes and talks. And like if there's like a meeting about trade or foreign relations in China, for example, right? They would go meet Xi Jinping, and when they meet him, they would learn what they need to know. They would discuss all of their things, and they would be like, "Thank you for your time. I do have to go speak with the rest of my uh, team, I guess, or however you'd address them, whatever this new matter of government would be. But I have to go address it with them. We'll have a conversation, and we'll get back to you. And if it's over like normal trade relations that don't have a major impact, like import export or anything like that, um, then we'll leave it to the figureheads. But if it's something massive that affects every single one of us in one way or another, like we should each and every one be able to vote. We should each be able to change our minds, and it would make it so there's a lot less waste. Because if you think about it, a lot of the problems that we have as people, the smaller problems, they get streamlined through, because if it's a smaller problem, usually we can get to more of a sense of agreement. Those smaller problems in the government, now they'll go in, they'll get signed, they'll get smacked out in a day or two. But the bigger issues, they often take, months, years. They have to formulate multiple drafts. One party has to get certain things in it in order for them to feel like they win. So there's stipulations that have to be inserted in that often don't have anything to do with the problem that you're actually having, right? So all of these bills get agreed upon. There's so many compromises, and by the time the compromise is reached, the problem's already way worse. So this would streamline that process. It would bring moral responsibility. It would make it so we have a almost foolproof fact-checking authentication process, right? Because even with mobile companies, like we have security systems in our phone already without the ones that we download. So even if one of our phones were to get hacked, like there's got to be some kind of internal reporting system from that, right? To notify Samsung or to notify Rogers or to notify who. So if that happens in mass, then that makes it so we can We can have a more secure vote. We can have a more informed vote. We can get rid of the news biases or the paid actors. Sorry, um, and it makes it so every one of us has more of a choice. I think I've laid out a good foundation. I think I've laid out a good way for security, the three step, two AI, one human interface to make sure everything goes through the exact same. I've established like how trade relations would go. Obviously, those people would still need power. You can't just, get elected and then only talk to people and then make decisions, right? Like they would still need some kind of like trading power and like better judgment for public security and stuff like that. But because they are elected by the mayors who are elected by the people, like as I said, each one has more accountability. Each one has different roles where they need to step into it. And yeah, I just think transparency would go up. We'd have better rule of law. We'd be able to put away all of our hot button issues. It seems like the big issues that all of us are for or against or divided, whatever, like it almost creates a sense of divide because we get behind the person who believes it, right? So, like, Mark Carney believes this, so he's my guy, and Pierre believes this, so he's my guy, right? And we often start fighting about the people, not the ideas. And when you lose sight of the ideas, it means that you just lose sight of everything. The ideas are what's going to make the change. The people are just the guys arguing about it to get it done. And again, there's a lot of compromises that need to be made. So yeah, we have like a certain power structure. We'd have to honestly hone in the details of what they need because like we still need to be able to manage order. We still need to be able to make certain calls for like pandemics or wars or anything like that. So there still has to be like loopholes or fallbacks so that there's wartime efforts or public relations trading, whatever. And we'd still have a normal election so that it'd be like once every 4 years we'll elect the mayors, right? And then the mayors have, uh, let's say, 2 years to get to know who the people who want to run the province are, right? So they have 2 years after they've been elected into their 4 year term to choose who they would like to run the province. Obviously, there's going to have to be a whole form of um, like elections in between of the mayors. So they'll get their candidates and they'll have to, taper them off one by one, hear out everybody. That's why I'm saying the 2 years, so they have enough time to get to know each one of them. If there's 100 candidates, obviously that's going to take a lot of time to knock them off. I think 2 years is a good ample time to be able to think of any adjustment like that. So every 2 years they'd event every 2 years after the election they would vote in the provincial leaders. And then the provincial leaders will be basically fresh. They've talked all of their points. They know their constituents. They know what the mayors are looking for. So they would be in the best interest of the people. I think it gets rid of corruption too, because each time they have to be elected through these two categories, it makes it so the people are speaking every single time, no matter what. And like it is basically, I think, the next stage of the democratic process. I feel like it is a way to help unite the world because we may disagree on one issue, one topic, but that doesn't mean we disagree about everything. We are people. We have all different opinions. What I feel about this topic, you're not going to feel about this topic, and we could go down the list and find 20 topics we're not able to agree on. That is so easy to do, right? But we could also find 20 topics we agree on. And honestly, nowadays we have it so opinions are what we judge moral character from, which there's so many different opinions and so many different agreement points. So like if I said something mean about somebody, then like you can look at me as a terrible person, but without context you don't know why I said that, right? Or like if I have a certain belief on this specific topic and I'm like, oh man, this is my belief and everything, that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. That one opinion, even though you don't agree with me, you should really judge by the content of people's actions or the content of their character, not by some of the things they say. And obviously, if you meet someone and everything that comes out of their mouth, you're like, wow, that is a terrible opinion and I should not be anything about that, then yeah, cut those people out. But if you know people and there's like 99% of things that you like about this person, they're trustworthy, they're like good with friends or family or your kids or whatever the case may be, right? Like you should You should keep those people around, even though that 1% you don't really agree with, just because it's about the content of who they are. And I know I'm kind of getting off topic, but I do think that, like, with this new form, it would make it so we would be able to actually get through opinions, and we would be able to put them to the side so we can actually unify again. Because a lot of the big issues, I feel like if people actually had a say, if we could see where the public was, I feel like a lot of the issues would vaporize. You know, um, like abortion, for example. I know that's a hot button topic, and I'm not even going to give an opinion on abortion. I'm just saying if we could set up a voting system so that the whole country voted and every vote counted, and everyone, let's say 75% voted that they're for abortions, it's fine, you can keep it, then that's a clear issue where it's solved. You know, like, send it through. Some people are going to be upset, but the people have spoken, the majority has spoken. You know, but if it comes out 75% and everyone's like, I don't agree with abortions at all, you know, then again, the people have spoken. And if we're on a 50-50 ground, then the opinion is still going to be swaying. But if we were to tie, then we'd have to just put it on delay, allow more people to speak about it, allow more people to spread their opinion. And then once it's voted on and everyone, when we have the general consensus and the public has spoken, then we can forget about it. You know, I don't have to hate my neighbor because they're against abortion or for abortion. I don't need to hate my neighbor for a lot of the topics we have today. If me and my neighbor all voted for those topics, if me and my neighbor all were just as important in those decisions, we would no longer argue about these things because it's equally important to everybody, you know? And I do feel like a lot of the world's issues could be solved if people, us, if the people had the choice. Because all I'm seeing nowadays is entrenched politicians, some of them who have never had a job in their entire life, getting into politics, and they just start running the country. I see a lot of politicians who get into it, and I can tell by their moral clarity and who they are and what they're saying that they actually have good intentions and there's a great future ahead of them. And you can see the moral character change as things go on. They might realize, like, this part is really messed up, or this is a bad part of the country, or maybe the finances are bad, or even bribery. You know what I mean? Like, their moral character keeps getting challenged and challenged and challenged. And I just feel like there's so much corruption in the world today. Um, the fact that the news can have such a swing on voters is so unfair. It's not right. It's not how things were meant to be. Um, so I think we can get rid of corruption, especially because, like, there's more engagement to us. There's more stepping stones at these town hall meetings when there's a new issue coming out. If people want to come and speak about it and get clarity, that's what the government's there for. They're meant to represent us, and the government nowadays represents bigger interests, basically, right? We have so many things that are going wrong in our country, and every decision they make are helping people above us, thinking that a top-down economy will work for everybody. But what we really need is a bottom-up. If we could empower the people, if we can enrich the people, then as that wealth goes up, the country can tax more, right? People are richer, more money coming in. So it's not even tax more, like higher percentage. It's just if you're making more, you're taxing more. So if we give the bottom the money, it goes up. If we give the bottom the decision power, it goes up. Every single decision we make, if we start at the bottom and work our way up, we'll be able to build a pyramid. But if we start from the top and work our way down, we're just going to be dropping stones. I actually feel like that was a very nice philosophical place to end. So please, in the comments, let me know if you like this idea. Let me know if you want to help me refine it, or if you want to challenge me on any of it. Let me know how you think. And thanks for your time. Sorry it was so long. Have a good night. Peace and love.